Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to part two of the HCAM 2020 Contested Races Candidates Debates. I'm HCAM News Director Tom Nappy and your moderator for tonight's debate. This year's debate is being done through Zoom to follow the social distancing guidelines due to the COVID-19 pandemic. In the first part of tonight's debate, we heard from the two candidates running for the one open select board seat. In this debate, we will hear from three candidates running for two open school committee seats. Our format for these debates is simple. I will ask each candidate questions, and they will have up to 2 minutes to respond. The bell sound indicates 10 seconds remaining. If any candidate has a follow-up response to another candidate's comment, they can state they would like to comment. I will cue them, and they will
Excuse me, Tom.
What's up,
It
Joe?
appears that one of the candidates has dropped off the Zoom. It could be a technical issue. We might want to wait for all the candidates.
All right. Thank you for bringing that to my attention, and we will wait a little bit, and I'll go over the rules again, but I'll just run through them for now, and once that candidate reappears, we'll run through them once again. If any candidate has a follow-up response to another candidate's comment, they can state they would like to comment. I will cue them, and they will have 1 minute for the comment. If I ask a follow-up question, the candidate will have 1 minute to respond. Following the question and answers portion, each candidate will have a 1 minute closing statement. This debate features candidates for school committee. This year we have three candidates running: Lya Batlle-Rafferty, Markey and Dawn Ronan. The order of the candidates who answer each question will rotate, with the initial order having been drawn by random chance. And let's see if we have all three candidates. Looks like we have Dawn, Lya, and Joe. All right, so just in case you didn't hear the rules before, I will ask each candidate questions, and they will have up to 2 minutes to respond. The bell sound indicates 10 seconds remaining. If any candidate has a follow-up response to another candidate's comment, they can state they would like to comment. I will cue them, and they will have 1 minute for the comment. If I ask a follow-up question, the candidate will have up to 1 minute to respond. Following the question and answers portion, each candidate will have a 1 minute closing statement. This debate features candidates for school committee. We have Lya Batlle-Rafferty, Markey, and Dawn Ronan. The order of the candidates who answer each question will rotate, with the initial order having been drawn by random chance. So I think everybody's ready. We'll get to the first question. And the first question is, what is the most important qualification for a school committee member? Give an example that shows you possess this quality and how it will impact your effectiveness on the board. We'll start with Lya.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you, HCAM, for doing this for us today. There's several important abilities that someone on the school committee needs to be able to have, but one of them is to think strategically. When you're on a school committee, you're dealing with large budgets, you're dealing with overall school policies, and you're dealing with having an employee who takes care of multiple schools. I personally have been part of a school board previously in Pittsburgh. While I was in the tenure, we actually had our grouping go from one school to two schools to three schools, with the original principal sort of becoming a superintendent of all the schools. So we dealt a lot with the growing pains of learning how to handle that relationship. And I think that relationship is one of the key things that a member of the school committee needs to be able to navigate. They're your employees, you've hired them, you looked at their resume and you thought they were great, which means you now treat them with a lot of trust and respect. But you also have to be able to talk one-on-one with them and bring up problems or issues or concerns. And I feel that having done this before, I will be able to pick it up fairly quickly and begin the process of doing my job in the school committee within hopefully a few weeks.
All right. Thank you very much, Lya. Dawn, what is the most important qualification for a school committee member? Give an example that shows you possess this quality and how it will impact your effectiveness on the board.
I think one of the most important qualities, especially in Hopkinton right now, is we're seeing a lot of growth and changes, as well as facing COVID and the pandemic, is the collaboration. You are working with many building leaders as well as town leadership. And this past budget process, having done it once and then twice and then 3 times, really shows how important that collaboration is, not only with our town leaders and our educators and our school administration, but with the community as well, because they are one of the largest stakeholders. As they're voting you in, and they're putting their trust in you, and their engagement and getting them to engage and collaborate is a very important aspect as well. I feel that I will do that well on the school committee, as I've spent the past number of years as the youth commission chair, collaborating not only with our leadership, but as well as our school district and with other town businesses to bring different types of programming to our youth and to our community. And I have a passion for that. It's very exciting when you can pull people together that all have a passion for the youth and be able to have this really great end result.
All right. Thank you. And Joe, what is the most important qualification for a school committee member? Give an example that shows you possess this quality and how it will impact your effectiveness on the board.
Hi, Tom. Thanks for having us. Thanks for setting up this debate. To me, the most important role or quality of a school committee candidate is leadership. And I'll tell you about what that means to me. Leadership in these town committees involves a lot of things that Dawn and Lya said. It most of all requires listening. So listening and understanding what are the concerns of the staff, of the students, of the families in town. Listening so you get the details on the budget issues. We did a lot of listening on the school building committee, and it turned out to be the most effective approach to ensure that we actually built the school, Marathon School, that the community wanted. We didn't take the approach of doing it kind of quietly and kind of pushing through hard. What we did is we asked the community, what do you want? And then we did what the community wanted. And that works. The other quality that I consider part of leadership is having thick skin. It kind of goes in tune with listening. If you're going to listen, you're going to have strong critics, and you need to be able to stand up and hear that criticism. And sometimes it's warranted, and you can change and become better because of that. And thirdly, leadership involves a lot of teamwork. We're running as individuals for a school committee, but once elected, we work as part of a team. It's really an organism that works together to get things done. And being a leader who can bring out the best in the people on the committee will serve that committee well and serve the town well. I was praised as part of my role on the school building committee for doing just that, for bringing out the best in the expertise, the great deep expertise, and all the other members on the board, much deeper than mine, but giving them a platform to be able to share that expertise and bring it to the benefit of the end goal. And that brings me to the fourth quality, which is really focus. In the midst of lots of chaos and sometimes contentious debates, you need a leader who can step back and remember, what is the purpose of this whole thing? And without ego, kind of move that purpose forward and get us closer to the end goal. So I think it's really about leadership, listening, thick skin, and focus.
All right. Thank you. If elected, what are your top priorities? We'll start off with Dawn.
So with facing the pandemic and COVID, next year, my absolute top priority is keeping teachers, our ABAs, our paras in our classrooms with our students. We're starting to hear a little bit every day some of the challenges and cutbacks that we're feeling locally in the budget because of state and federal aid. That's a lot of that information is still ready to roll out, right? It's going to be different with transportation and the PPEs in schools, and as we are trying to look at all of that and get our students back into our building, it is very important to me that we're able to keep those teachers face to face with our students. So in this coming year, that is really where my focus is going to be. And I feel blessed right now, in Hopkinton, where we're not tasked with laying off teachers coming up. In fact, we will be hiring a few. So we're very blessed in that area. But that is very important to me as a school committee member.
Okay, Joe, if elected, what are your top priorities?
Well, Tom, I think one is the COVID thing, right? Is figuring out how to make it all work given the constraints. But aside from that, the growth in the community. As our community continues to grow, our schools are doing the best they can to adapt to that growth. And the biggest challenge in the next 10 years will be maintaining that level of excellence that our students and families have come to expect from our schools, while providing the physical plant adjustments and expansions needed, while continuing to deliver the educational program. So my experience on the school building committee for Marathon School has prepared me well. I've learned a ton, along with the other folks on the committee, about what it takes to build a school and to do it right. And I think I would like to be able to offer that expertise to my colleagues on the school committee as a way of ensuring the success of the multiple projects that we see in flight now to expand Elmwood, to expand Hopkins, to expand the high school, and most likely other facilities in the coming years.
Okay, thank you. Lya, if elected, what are your top priorities?
Well, I think, as everyone else has said, the COVID situation has to be the quickest fire that we all jump into. Like there's no doubt about that. For my focus, which is generally diversity and special education, I think about things like the masks, right? A lot of special education kids have sensory problems. What does it look like if they have to walk into a classroom with a mask? How do we support them? How do we make sure that our classrooms are designed correctly so that they can be safe with their special requirements? So I think that's one thing that I really would want to focus on short term. Long term, I would love to help with the projections. Our school committee has been working really hard on them, but I'm a data scientist by trade. And so I do a lot of projections and a lot of predictions. And I feel like I could complement the school committee and help to come up with better questions, maybe on the algorithms. Maybe I could point to things that are being missed in terms of thought processes from the companies that are actually doing the projections. And of course, diversity, right? COVID's not going to last forever. And in the process, we're becoming a much more diverse town, right? And I've been looking up laws. And in Part 1, Title 7, Chapter 71, Section 37C of our laws, it encourages all school committees to adopt as educational objectives promotion of racial balance and correction of existing racial imbalance. So what I would really like to do is find metrics that would tell us if we have racial imbalance issues within the schools as sort of red flags, and then we could do something about them.
Okay, thank you. From your perspective, what do you feel will be the biggest obstacles the school committee will face following COVID-19? We'll start off with Joe for this one.
Yeah, Tom, I think the biggest issue facing the schools related to COVID-19, not only the logistics of how do you keep social distance and masks and still deliver the program, but financial. We're seeing a drop off in the town's revenue as a result, directly and indirectly, of the COVID crisis, economic impact. So as the town has had to recognize that the revenue coming to the town is going to be less than we thought it would be when we looked ahead 6 months ago, the school committee has had to work really hard to redo their budget, meaning if there's less revenue, we have to spend less. We can't spend more than we have. So that to me is the biggest obstacle to continue to deliver the quality education. I have to say, it's not insurmountable. For the 20 years I've been at Dell and EMC before that, the environment has always been cutting costs. And it's kind of just part of how I work. As part of the school building project, we were given authorization to spend $4 million more than we ended up spending. And we did that by really looking at the line items in the architect's plan for the school and really having a value-based discussion about what's really needed and what's kind of we could do without. We ended up delivering a beautiful school to the full extent the state allowed us, and we saved the town. We didn't spend $4 million that the town had authorized us to spend in the process. So it can be done, but it will be a great challenge.
Okay, thank you. Lya, from your perspective, what do you feel will be the biggest obstacles the school committee will face following COVID-19?
I'm actually in sort of Joe's camp a little bit here. We've had to push off all the capital improvement projects that we had planned for this year in order to be able to cut our budget. And also the school committee was trying to be, the superintendent, her financial manager, and the school committee were trying very hard to think about the rest of the town. So they didn't want to use the revolving budgets, the revolving accounts that they had in case the town needed them. What that means is that things like roofs for schools have been pushed back a year, which also means that any growth to the schools that was planned to maybe come out next year is now going to suffer from that. So we're going to continue to have this growth of children in town. We're going to continue to have this growth and diversity in town. And now we're sort of going to be a year behind in dealing with it the way we wanted to. So I think that is going to be a challenge, considering how it felt kind of last minute for a lot of people in town when the 6 new classrooms were asked for and the additions to the schools were asked for. I think the school committee, the superintendent, were trying really hard to get ahead of that. And now this is going to push us back again, through no fault of anybody's, right? We all have to deal with this crisis. So that is my thought.
Thank you. Dawn, from your perspective, what do you feel will be the biggest obstacles the school committee will face following COVID-19?
I think I agree with both Joe and Lya. I mean, it's no secret that the budget is definitely being affected. I feel very confident that we're coming in a good place. We are hiring additional teachers, like I had said, and not being tasked with laying off teachers. And we know that that's going to help us with keeping our classroom sizes down. We have already purchased the PPE that will be needed to start the school year in September through the CARES Act. There is some talk on the federal level that's trickling down to the state that there could be some additional money for things related to COVID directly for the schools. So, hopefully we can look forward to that. So that's, going to help us slightly. But, the other challenge is really watching these regulations come out. We were waiting for the Department of Education to give us some further guidelines. And so what is that going to look like in September? How many kids can we put in a classroom? How are we going to get all the kids there? How are the lunchrooms going to work? So all of those pieces of the puzzle, to make sure that we're getting our students in face to face with our teachers, our educators in our buildings, I think is going to be not impossible. I think it's going to be thinking out of the box, being creative, and a lot of great minds thinking together. So I see that as being one of our biggest challenges.
Thank you. Okay, so there were recently some proposed state COVID-19 guidelines for schools to reopen. Based on what you know, what are your thoughts on the proposed state COVID-19 guidelines, and do you support them? We'll start off with Lya.
Yeah, so the guidelines so far are definitely based on science. So it's kind of hard to say I don't support them because they actually fit very well with the guidelines that everybody has, right? So masks, 6 feet apart, etc. However, it is extremely difficult to set up faculty to be able to handle only 10 to 12 students in a classroom at a time. To rotate students through those classrooms, set up times when different students can come in and out. And of course, kids congregate in the halls, and it's very difficult to control that kind of behavior. The kids are going to want to say hello, see their friends, etc. So I feel that I support the guidelines based on science. I worry a lot about what we are going to be able to do within our budget to fit the guidelines, and to allow children to see their teachers face to face and to see their friends face to face. Do I doubt we can do it? No. Our school district has so far shown amazing flexibility in doing things that in a very short period of time. But I do have concerns about the implementation.
Okay, thank you. Dawn, do you support the proposed state COVID-19 guidelines for schools to reopen?
So I am absolutely an advocate for schools reopening. I do have to mirror the sentiment that right now I do agree with those guidelines. I mean, in Massachusetts, where we're just phase twoing. So, I think it's really smart right now to be aware of what those guidelines are and be thinking of them. But I think it's more important to also keep in mind that things are changing rapidly, and our school district is really good at implementing things on a rapid rate when they need to. And I think we're going to hear a little bit more over the next month or so about, well, here's what it's really going to look like. And then that's when we really should be stepping into gear and saying, okay, how are we now going to make this happen? So we're in a good spot again, where we're doing the things that are obvious, right? We've pre-purchased our PPE. We've pre-purchased some curriculum textbooks. We've gone through the schools and taken a look at where we might need to put up screening and separation, and getting an idea of, where can we add classrooms and what those classrooms might look like. So I am in agreement with everything at this point, but I'm still looking forward to what the next month is going to say. And I think that's really going to help us guide what September is going to look like for us.
Okay, thank you. Joe, do you support the proposed state COVID-19 guidelines for schools to reopen?
It's an interestingly phrased question, Tom. I mean, I think it's been a difficult period for our students, for our learners, right? And we have to we look to the state for guidance. So we review that guidance carefully and try to implement it locally as required. So it's not whether I support it, but how will we implement it? And I know the superintendent and the task force that she's working with is working very hard with the teachers, with the teachers union, and with the state to come up with guidelines that make sense, not only logistically but for our students. This is about the children, right? So home logging in on a Zoom meeting like this is not a very effective way for many students to engage the educational curriculum. So anything we can do in the fall that will offer even some classroom experience live with their peers, with the teacher in the same room, even if it's a 1 day on, 1 day off, 10 students one day, the other 10 the next day, and one half is logging in from home to the same classroom with the same teacher on their off days, would be better than what we have had to live with the last couple months. I don't think it's been ideal for our students. I think the teachers and school committee and everyone has worked and done everything they can to make it as good as possible. And we will continue to do that again in the fall in alignment with the guidelines the state offers. But we don't have complete guidelines yet either, as Dawn pointed out. We're still waiting for those, and they're coming in kind of waves. But we'll be working hard to make sure that whatever they are, we are able to deliver an optimal experience under those conditions.
All right, thank you very much. And there could certainly be changes with the proposed guidelines in the near future based on what happens, of course. And we certainly hope that those changes will be for the better and life will get back to normal as soon as possible. So the next question is, do you think COVID-19 will result in permanent changes in the way kids are educated? If so, explain. We'll start off with Dawn for this one.
So I think that COVID-19 has brought to light that there is an ability to maybe look at a student that is a different learner, and how can we bring in some of the things that might have done well for them during this COVID-19 situation. So I think it gave us an opportunity to see we have maybe a group of students that are thriving, having that interaction via Zoom, and other children that need that constant classroom interaction. So I do think that, you know, there's always a lesson or something that you can learn from a situation. And you know, even the abilities for our teachers to continue to touch our students through this way of us being isolated, might that be a method that could work better for a student on a given day, a given month? So I definitely think that that might be one way we could, you know, see curriculum change slightly for students that might thrive in that environment.
All right, thank you very much. Joe, do you think COVID-19 will result in permanent changes in the way kids are educated? If so, explain.
Yeah, I think the whole situation has uncovered some things, right? And the whole educational system is one that's been very resistant to change. And if you had said 8 months ago, you know, you'll be delivering fully remote education by the end of the year, no one would have believed it would be possible. So sometimes these urgent situations, these crises, force change on an institution that the institution wouldn't otherwise be able to adapt to. And it probably things like some of the support tools, if we could consolidate on a single platform for sharing documents, you know, with between teachers and students across all the grades, so that students don't have to log into multiple places depending which class they're in. I think that kind of tool standardization would help the experience. I know some students have had to log into multiple different classrooms as well as their home class website to find out what to do, as well as keep up on Empower School. Sometimes teachers send notes there. I think we could learn from our recent experience on maybe standardizing on some of the operational tools of online education and streamlining the experience for our students that way.
Okay, thank you. Lya, do you think COVID-19 will result in permanent changes in the way kids are educated? If so, please explain.
Well, I want to start with, oh my gosh, that senior car parade. If nothing else, I hope that is a permanent change and every child gets to go through it, because it was a fabulous experience for my son and for so many other children. So that is a huge positive that I never would have foreseen. Another really interesting change that has been happening in the educational system is a lot of schools are becoming SAT or ACT optional because of the disruptions with COVID. And for a lot of students, these standardized tests are actually nerve-wracking. They cause a huge amount of anxiety, and kids who do really well in school may not do well with the SAT and ACT. So I am really interested to see what happens when these educational institutions accept these students without the standardized scores. And I bet you will find that they thrive and that they do just as well as they would have done had they turned in these scores. And finally, this is a little bit of a learning curve type thing, right? I feel like, first of all, for special needs kids, this was hard. This was very difficult. Trying to figure out how to implement ADA standards over Zoom, very, very hard. One of my children actually dealt with that, and the high school did a great job. They set up meetings, etc. But I feel like that's one thing that is definitely working better prior to COVID. So I'm kind of hoping that this like person-to-person touch interaction actually recurs and that we do not stay remote there. And then I think it's also shown disparate situations for different kinds of children, right? So there are kids who are having to go to the library to do schoolwork because they can't necessarily log in from home, right? And so I feel like that's something that we need to work on, that if we're going to have remote learning, we have to find a way to make it equitable.
All right, thank you very much. How important do you feel the school system is to the economic welfare of the town? We'll start off with Joe for this one.
Yeah, I mean, we're part of a system here, right? So we have good schools, so people move here, which drives up the price of real estate, which causes also employers move here because of the good employment base we have here. So there's definitely an interlock there, interdependency between our economic reality in Hopkinton and the quality of our schools. So how important are the schools to the economic success? Well, I think that because we have good schools and we have people move here, you know, unfortunately, what we have in Massachusetts is an unfair system, really, of education funding. So we have wealthier communities get resources and then the poorer communities don't. We happen to be fortunate and privileged in Hopkinton to have resources. So we get people with good paying jobs willing to pay those extra taxes, which then if there's enough quantity of people in life sciences or such that it makes it sense for an employer to locate out here, they may do so. So I think there's definitely an interdependency there. We tend to look at it the other way, though, Tom, I think, is the tax revenue coming in. How does that make our schools better? But as we pump out graduates that go to good colleges and maybe come back and work locally, that kind of completes the circle too.
Joe, can you just emphasize, I believe you said welfare communities get resources, poor communities don't. Can you just talk about that a little bit more?
Sure. Yeah, back maybe 30 or 40 years ago,
the federal government used to send a lot more money to the states, and the states distributed to local communities. We've had this push where we have given local communities, quote, control over their education, which means fund it yourself, largely. We do have a state formula that allocates state money to communities as well. However, much more of the funding, percentage of the funding nowadays comes from local property taxes than it did, say, 40 years ago. And that, by definition, leaves wealthier communities who have higher property tax base with more money to spend on schools, and communities with lower property tax base with less money to spend on schools. So this is a bigger issue than Hopkinton, and it actually Hopkins is in a favorable position under this scheme. And again, there is kind of a state formula that aims to make things more equitable by distributing state money fairly and probably disproportionately to the poorer communities. However, even so, the wealthier communities that have higher tax revenue do have more money available for schools. And that's why you see Dover, Sherborne, Hopkinton, Natick, other communities with good property tax base usually leading in the top schools in the state too.
Okay, thank you very much. All right, so Lya, how important do you feel the school system is to the economic welfare of the town?
I feel like in our town, it is hugely important. In fact, it's almost symbiotic, right? So as Joe said, the property prices are going up because we have one of the top school districts in Massachusetts. But by that token, that also means the taxes are going up and making it very difficult for some of the people who have been here a long time to be able to afford their homes. And so I feel like right now, it is hugely important because we are more than 85% residential, right? So we don't have enough of a business type income to offset with our budget if something were to happen to the school district, which hopefully never does, or any other type of issue, right? So if our business revenue went up, if we had a greater percentage of small businesses in town, et cetera, then our economic success would be more balanced, right? So there would be more business money coming in, and then there would also be this school growth that would help our residential piece grow. So I feel like right now, like I said, it's symbiotic, but there is a possibility of offsetting that a little bit.
Okay. Dawn, how important do you feel the school system is to the economic welfare of the town?
Well, if you've lived in town for a while, you know that as our schools got stronger, as Joe had pointed out, people wanted to move into Hopkinton for the schools. So I think the schools are definitely responsible for bringing in new families, younger families into our town. And as Lya had pointed out, I think that it's our responsibility to also look at how are we going to deliver a high quality education, but also keep in mind that, you know, socioeconomic divide is not good amongst the community, right? So you never want to, you want this happy balance all the time where your community still wants to support your schools and can still support your schools financially, which has always impressed me. I would sit at annual town meetings and see people that clearly did not have kids in our school systems anymore, you know, but yet standing up every time we needed a new roof or a roadway paved. So they really work hand in hand. I don't want to say that one is more important than the other, because I think it's a comfortable collaboration.
Okay, thank you. Joe, did you have something to say? You unmuted, so I was just curious. Okay, we'll go on to the next question. With the COVID-19 pandemic, there has been worry about sports being cut from school budgets. Warwick, Rhode Island is a community that recently cut the budgets towards all district school athletic programs. Could this be something that you would find necessary for Hopkinton? We'll start off with Lya.
So this has actually been a source of discussion within the school committee when they're talking about the budget. And I have not heard anything about defunding. What I've heard is there may be some kind of fee that somebody has to pay to do the sports, etc. My personal feeling is that as long as the science and the guidance that we are given says that it is okay at that point for certain sports to recommence, that we should do everything in our power to allow students who benefit from those sports to be able to engage in them. That said, I am a very careful person, so I would want to follow those guidelines very closely, because a lot of sports are very large gatherings of children, and we would not want to expose anyone or put them in danger.
Okay, thank you. Dawn, with the COVID-19 pandemic, there has been worry about sports being cut from school budgets. Warwick, Rhode Island is a community that recently cut the budget towards all district school athletic programs. Could this be something that you would find necessary for Hopkinton at all?
So as I was stating earlier, Hopkinton's coming into this September, believe it or not, because, if you're following and you're hearing the budget cuts, it can be scary. But overall, Hopkinton's coming in September in a really pretty good place, considering that we just had a pandemic and are still in the midst of that pandemic. So again, the safety guidelines and regulations that, are still yet to roll out before September starts is going to be the first priority. But I do not predict that this coming year we're going to be looking at cutting a sport for a budget reason. It's, all predictions, but we're coming in strong, as I said, and we've got a great community, and that's what I mean. It's the community support. I remember there was one year where we were considering cutting a music program out of Hopkins, and community was able to come together, and we were able to come back to the drawing board, and that program was never needed to be cut. So when you engage the community and we can kind of partner together, I do not have a fear of that happening in this coming academic year.
Okay, thank you. Joe, with the COVID-19 pandemic, there has been worry about sports being cut from the school budgets. Warwick, Rhode Island is a community that recently cut the budget towards all district school athletic programs. Could this be something that you would find necessary for Hopkinton?
I sure hope not. I think sports is such an important part of what we offer through the schools. I think it's been a big loss for students to not have that physical outlet after school and to miss that kind of team work as well. So I certainly hope we wouldn't be looking at cutting sports, and I would be looking very hard to see what we can do to not have to cut sports. I would also second some of the other, so we think mostly of the curriculum, the academic curriculum, but our schools really offer a lot more, right? We offer as well the sports, but also the social emotional development. And I've got a son at Elmwood School, so I've been closely watching as that curriculum rolls out there, and just so impressed with how they're reaching these kids to help them understand interpersonal issues at a more mature level than previous classes we went through were able to do. Just using some available tools like the 7 Habits for Happy Kids book. My son would come home every day talking about that book. So I think that curriculum, as well as the sports, I call it the sports curriculum really, we're teaching our kids leadership and teamwork skills both in the classroom and on the field. So I would hope that we can maintain that even as we look at cuts. But as Lya pointed out, there's some medical guidance realities to all this too. So the large gatherings, we'll see what the state guidelines are on that front.
All right, thank you very much. All right, for our next portion, we're going to ask each of you a question about a quote in your candidate statement. We'll start off with Dawn. Dawn, in your candidate statement, you mentioned, quote, I have a record of seeking increased accountability and transparency over issues around the school budget, advocating for students and valuing our educational leaders, unquote. Could you explain this statement a bit more?
Yes. So, it's funny. One of the things that inspired me really to engage more in our school district was that I sat at many school committee meetings when HCAM used to tape them, and there was a couple days delay, and I would take notes, at every meeting, and the school committee members were probably sick of hearing from me when they would see my call come through, but I would say, this was said, can you explain this to me? And sharing that with our community. One of the latest is I had been following the Legacy Farms host agreement for quite a long time. We know that had been in the works, and I kept, going back and saying, okay, where are we with this? Where are we with this? And making the community aware of where we were with this money, because we know it, especially now, it could really help our school district. So more that I like things to be transparent and unintimidating for our community to reach out and ask questions and be able to get answers. Because that's where I was when I was in my early 20s, and God loves some of the older residents that would answer my questions when it would be, how does this work? So that's something that's very important to me and that I've done over the number of years.
Okay, thank you very much. Joe, this next one is for you. In your candidate statement, you mentioned, quote, maintaining and improving the educational experience for our children and families amidst continued community growth and facility planning and construction will be the biggest issue facing our schools in the next 10 years. Can you explain this statement a little bit more?
Sure, I can explain it by saying it was written before the COVID crisis, but but I stand by it. So absolutely, it's been the biggest challenge the last 10 years too, by the way. But now we have a new high school. Now it's 20 years old, new marathon school, but the growth in the population continues. Dawn mentioned the host community agreement with Legacy Farms, and I would have liked to have seen even stronger leadership from the selectmen than what I see in the resolution to that's on their agenda for this Tuesday night. I think we need to work across the committees and boards to hold our developers accountable to their commitments. And in that case, what I see as a resolution is leaving quite a bit of money on the table that the town, I believe, could have negotiated harder to get. So I think that as we look at the expansions already underway at Hopkins and Elmwood to add the modulars and the addition planned on the high school, those are examples of the facility planning that will be happening in buildings while students continue to learn in those buildings. So granted, the modulars should be done before the school year starts, but some of the high school construction and other school expansion that we need may happen during regular classroom operations. So figuring out a way to make that work and adapt to our growth while continuing to excel in what we deliver in the classroom, I do think is a great challenge ahead of us. And I'm prepared to help with that.
Okay, thank you. Lya, in your candidate statement, you mentioned, quote, I understand that it's hard to see enrollments and budgets escalate year after year, even though we want the best for our children. As someone who has worked on 5-year strategic plans for schools, I believe I can help balance current and future needs and take a proactive approach, unquote. Can you explain this statement a bit more?
Sure. I want to add the COVID thing as well, because that has thrown off our budget completely. But I am right now the chair of the Board of Assessors. I understand, and we have a lot of programs that help our elderly to deal with the home taxes and to get exemptions or to get abatements. And this year especially has been really difficult because some of the programs are actually volunteerism. So the recipients of the program volunteer X amount of hours, and in the process of volunteering, they get money taken off of their taxes. A lot of those volunteer positions haven't necessarily happened. So I feel like a lot of our senior population is actually feeling that. So it is probably more important than ever to try to carefully balance budgets, to try to make sure that we are keeping every resident of town in mind, and to maybe show the options that people have to help with their taxes, so that they don't feel overwhelmed by the budget, the school budget especially. We want to keep our schools in this amazing state that they're in. We want to keep our curriculum at this amazing state that it's in. But we also want to be empathetic towards our residents who may no longer have kids in the school, may no longer have a position where they're making a salary every day, right? And make sure that they understand that there are options to help them as well.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, so now we have reached that time in the program where it is time to make a closing statement. You have about a minute or so to make a closing statement. We'll start off with Lya. What do you want to say to all the voters out there?
When I first came to this country and went to school, I was put in an ESL program. I didn't necessarily need it. I had learned English in El Salvador and was pretty fluent. I was so bored that my teacher to this day tells the story of me finishing my entire math workbook in one night because she said, "Finish all your work." And I took her at her word. Why do I tell you this? Because diversity and inclusion aren't one size fits all. It's an evolving struggle all of us face. But when we're adults, we measure that change in years. If it happens in 5 years, that's pretty good. But 5 years to a child, that's their entire stay in one of our schools. We need to continue the work that's been started. We need to continue having a diverse school board. But that's not all that story should tell you. I love math. I love numbers. I play with data as my career. And I want to put that to work for the school district. The school district and school committee have been working hard on these projections so we can plan ahead. I believe my skills will complement the rest of the school committee. After all, doing projections is what I do on a day-to-day basis. So I respectfully ask for your vote on June 29th.
All right, thank you very much. Joe, what do you want to say to all the voters out there to close things out?
Thank you, Tom, for having us first, and thanks to Dawn and Lya too for great discussion here. I coming off this school building project, I especially take every opportunity to thank the citizens of Hopkinton for their generous advocacy and support financially for our schools. I've been before town meeting multiple times on behalf of the schools seeking large appropriations from the townspeople, and they've always come through for our schools. And as others have pointed out, it's not only people who have children in school or people who have children that have gone through the school, but even those without children in schools in the past or now are coming to support because they understand the importance of schools to our community. I realize these are public schools, so this is not a private school. So we don't have unlimited funds. And we also have to keep in mind fairness of how we deliver the curriculum for all students. So those are some of the differences I see with public education. I would be honored if the community continued to trust me with school-related issues as a member of the school committee. And I would be prepared to work collaboratively with the other amazing people on the school committee and on the other boards to help continue to advocate for our schools and for excellence for our students.
All right.
So,
thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, Dawn, what do you want to say to close things out to all the voters out there?
So over the number of years, I've really felt blessed. First, starting in as joining the Moms Club, and meeting parents and students, and taking that next journey into the kindergarten building and becoming more involved, and sitting on school councils and hearing each building struggle, each teacher's struggle, the building successes, the teacher's successes, and then taking that kind of over to the youth commission side as the chair of the youth commission, with a leadership role in helping fill community gaps and supports for our students, and then also being a member of the HDCA and our journey there about how do we support our student and our community with diversity and inclusion. And this year being able to implement the first collaborative training between youth commission members, our school resource officers, and the youth commission as a foundation of tools, that was very exciting. So that collaboration and bringing people together to benefit both our students and our communities is, I feel, what really makes our Hopkinton schools so strong.
All right.
So
Thank
I
you.
would be honored to have your vote on June 29th, because that is a passion that I would love to continue. And,
Okay.
I'm excited about hopefully being a part of what is already a great team on that school committee.
All right. Thank you very much. Well, that is going to conclude our contested races debate.
Thanks, guys.
A big thank you to Lya, Joe, and Dawn for participating. And also a big thank you to station manager Jim Cousins and the HCAM team for assisting in tonight's broadcast. We wish all of the candidates the very best of luck in this year's town election. And don't forget to get out and vote on Monday, June 29th. For everyone here at HCAM, I'm Tom Nappy. Have a great night, everyone. And thanks for tuning in. Thanks again, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.